Premise Podcast. Every single episode is out of control.
Welcome to the Premise Podcast. This is Bo Segrist, as you may know. If you've never listened to the Premise Podcast before, it's a podcast where it's completely new every week. It's a completely new podcast, new idea, new execution, especially. This week we have a great podcast called the Couch Surfers Podcast, where I stay with someone for 3 weeks on their couch, and then we talk about how that went. I wanted to go ahead and introduce the guest for this week, Jack Carr. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
That's irrelevant, I'd say, but I'm good. It's nice of you to ask, but we're just not going to talk about it. Jack, you've been on our many different podcasts before. You've been on a couple of them.
I have.
And now you have your own podcast. How does it feel to make it in this business?
It feels pretty good. My podcast has really been taken off.
Well, you have your own episode, I mean. Do you have your own podcast? What's it
No,
about?
I thought we were pretending that I had my own podcast. I was like, all right.
We don't pretend on this show, Jack.
Oh, shoot, you're right.
This is all real.
Dang it.
The reason I usually don't invite the guest to speak until the real podcast starts, but I want to give our fans a chance to get to know you. Is that okay?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I just have some very simple multiple choice questions prepped out.
Okay.
Are you willing to answer them for me?
Sure.
Okay. Jack, I want to know what your go-to snack is. Is it salted pretzels, a fruit platter with like a parfait? Is it fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies, or is it loaded nachos? Which of those is your go-to snack?
Wow. I guess most often out of those I snack on some cookies, so fresh out of the oven chocolate chip cookies, I guess, would be my answer.
I'm sure that's very interesting to our listeners. Next, I want to ask you, what's your go-to drink? Is it 2 bottles of beer at sunset? Is it red wine at a wine tasting? Is it a fruity cocktail? Or is it a warm glass of milk?
Ooh, I do like milk, but I don't ever really drink it warm, so I'm
Well, a room temp glass of milk.
okay, well that's kind of worse. So I'm just gonna go with the fruity cocktail because I do like fruity things. So yeah.
All right, which of the next 4 words describes you best? Is it ambitious, lovable, high maintenance, or independent?
I don't know. I guess I'll just say lovable, but I feel like that's the worst answer because it's like
You're lovable.
giving myself.
Our listeners need to know that.
All right.
Well, they just know you're honest.
Okay.
That's all. What's your favorite type of movie? A documentary, a romance, a horror, or a comedy?
I like documentaries. I just watched one the other day.
Which one?
13. Very good.
Oh, that's a great one. Ava DuVernay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, choose a pair of shoes. Do you like black high heels? Or like some... these are coming off the top of my head. Like some gold high heels that look like sandals? Like sandal high heels? Or like high heels that are like...
people wear?
Do what?
Like what Greek
Like
people...
Greek... Yeah, like an ancient Greek sandal, but it's a high heel.
Okay.
Or do you like woolen high heels, or like Birkenstocks, but the strap also holds onto the back of the ankle?
I'm gonna say... Why are there so many high heels? I'm gonna say the Greek shoes that are high heels, and then I'll just cut the heel off. Wear it like that.
All right, Jack. I have a confession to make. These aren't original quiz questions that I came up with. This was... You just took a BuzzFeed quiz to find out which Sex and the City character you are.
Oh wow, that's cool. I
Do
don't.
you want to guess who you got first?
Considering I've never seen that show, I couldn't even start to do that. So
Well, that's okay. You got Carrie Bradshaw, the main
wow.
character,
Oh,
Sarah Jessica Parker.
I'm the protagonist.
From your confidence to your humor, you're the light in every room. You're also exceptionally fashionable and loving.
Wow.
How do you think that describes you?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Do you, Jack, just in your personal life, do you keep like a blog, or do you write for any types of publications, or do you just in general kind of voice over everything that you do? Is that something that you do in your life?
Voiceover, I guess.
You do voiceover, you say? Like out loud or just in your head?
In my
I'm just
head,
trying to figure out if
I guess
you're
I could.
really like Carrie Bradshaw.
Oh, I mean, probably not.
Maybe we can give you like a Sex and the City script and you can read it for us. And we can see if it really fits. We'll do that later, and I'll just insert it right here.
One of the best things about living in a city like New York is leaving it. My friend Patience and her husband invited me to the Hamptons for the weekend. Patience and Peter were the perfect married couple. They were fun, smart, and they looked like they fell out of a J. Crew catalog. If their house wasn't right on the beach, I would have hated them. Hampton house guests are always required to sing for their supper. Brokers give investment advice. Architects, design advice. Single people give married friends tidbits from their sexual escapades. The next morning, I woke up feeling rested and fabulous. I couldn't wait to go out and take in the spectacular view.
Okay, Jack. Well, that's over. Are you ready to do the Couch Surfers podcast?
Sure, yeah. Super ready.
That's a great theme song, isn't it? It's the Couch Surfers podcast theme song.
Wow.
And it really fits the tone of the show, which is so happy and light, and it's just us enjoying being together for the time that we got to. Jack Carr, as always on the show, I stay at someone's house for 3 weeks for the podcast. It's kind of a podcast I came up with. And I crash on someone's couch for 3 weeks, and then we have a podcast to talk about what it was like. This is something a lot of people are interested in, but no one's had the guts to do it yet. So here we are. Jack, I now live at the house of my next podcast guest. I'm now on their couch. I'm actually recording from their couch, so that's why we're doing this over the phone instead of in person. So thanks for taking the podcast call today. It's kind of like Batman and his phone, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of how you are.
Sorta. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like that. Jack, tell us a little bit about your living situation. Kind of like, what's your home like? Explain to people what I entered into.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago.
Right now I live in Glendale, California with my fiance, Lauren. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment. We just moved in like a month ago or so at this point.
Was that 4 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, something like that. So, we're enjoying it so far. The state is new to us, so, yeah.
Explain to people kind of like the makeup, like the washer dryer situation, the kitchen area.
We have it's a 1-bedroom apartment. It has a kitchen, bathroom, main room, bedroom. That's what you get in a 1-bedroom apartment. We have like a laundry facility that's like only a few steps away. It's not part of our building though, so we share it with the rest of the building. We're on the first.
Our listeners always want to know about like the dishwasher situation and like the Ethernet situation. What kind of cable are you working with?
Yeah.
I know, of course. I just try to let the guests explain that part because it's your home after all.
So we don't have a dishwasher. We have a fridge, oven, and like a little bit of countertop space. Not a lot of kitchen space. And then we've got
Mm-hmm.
TV, couch, the couch where you slept. You know it very well by now. And then
Yeah.
we have a front door and a back door. Kind of like the building's kind of a little bit like gated in.
So yeah, I came into that. You had been living there for a week. You had moved in a week earlier. You were very settled in. There's only like a room of boxes left, right? Like it was just the living room still had boxes.
Yeah. But there were
And
definitely still boxes.
and so the first couple of days that I was there, you guys were kind of finishing unpacking, and I wanted to give you that time as a couple to do that, to unpack the rest of your stuff. That's kind of an intimate thing. I didn't want to intrude on that. But by the time I was there for a couple of days, you had pretty much gotten the place to a presentable state.
I really want to hear that from the people who stayed 3 weeks on my couch.
Yeah, and I don't always stay 3 weeks, but I was just having such a good time. I bumped it up a few days to a week.
It's a party, Fun time.
Yeah, and you seem to like living in California so far. I mean, you've only lived there for 4 weeks, and I guess you were distracted having a friend there for 3 of those, so.
Yeah, we haven't really been able to appreciate our time here without you. It almost feels like California and Bo just go hand in hand at this point.
Right. Well, tell the listeners. I think I've started to say my piece. Tell the listeners what it was like to. I mean, this is kind of like a reality show for you, but in podcast form.
It is. Yes. Yeah.
What was it like to, if you will, always have ears on you? My ears, I mean. I was always listening.
It was definitely interesting. Like you said, we weren't really prepared. And there's the whole thing where you told me you were moving in on the 7th, but then you came on the 6th, so like we didn't really have it all ready yet.
Well, that's what makes it a surprise.
Yep. But I mean, it wasn't terrible. I like having guests. I don't mind entertaining. And you were pretty courteous. You didn't take. Well, you took a lot of showers, but you didn't take up the time I was going to be showering. So I guess it didn't really affect me too much.
Yeah, I usually take noonday showers when I'm waking up at 11.
Yeah.
We can go over my daily schedule for everyone. You can just help me fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
I wake up, I guess it was 11:30 Pacific time because I'd moved back 2 time zones.
Yeah.
So I wake up 11:30 Pacific time. I go and I use my espresso machine. That's something I bring along with me to every house where
I was impressed. That thing is kind of big.
Yeah, it's big, it's steamy, but if you want authentic Italian espresso, that's kind of what you
That's
what you pay for.
That's what you pay for. Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And it seems like your fiance Lauren kind of had a problem with the espresso machine. Do you want to?
Okay, I mean, it's just kind of big.
But it gives you espresso. She knows that, right?
Well, yeah. But I mean, we have only so much counter space, and with the microwave where it is, that was like we only had like 1 foot to do our meal prep, because you put it right next to the oven.
I mean, it's easy. You just do TV dinners while I'm there. You know, I mean, I'm sure the listeners will agree with me. Um, but
Yeah.
I think we both said our piece. I think we can move on from that.
All right.
Um,
Sure. Sure. It's over.
uh,
Fine. I know you like espresso. Really gets you up in the
right.
morning. Fine. You know.
Yeah. Way to get us back on track. So I make and drink my espresso. I have 3 to 5 cups a day of espresso in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I eat brunch, which is I make a full breakfast in the microwave. I cook my eggs. You know, you have a stove. It was kind of dirty, so I avoided it.
Yeah.
And so you can make eggs in the microwave. They'll make you use the bathroom a lot, but they taste the same about. So I'd make my eggs, my microwavable bacon, and the rest, and I had to, the listeners at home are probably like, well, why did he have to cook his own breakfast? Wasn't he a guest in the house?
So, see, that's the thing, is Lauren was saying, and I agree, so you can't just ask for a continental breakfast every morning. We don't, we can, because, I mean, you're a guest of ours, I get it, but we're not a hotel, It's kind of a difference, so it's like we make our food. We went out to get food numerous times together, but, some nights we were kind of on our own for dinner, too. And, like,
It's just kind of like when I would ask you and Lauren, to make me a continental breakfast, you guys would look at me like you didn't know what it meant. And so that's part of the reason why I kept asking. Because I figured eventually you could use context clues to.
So that's where you're wrong, because we know what it is. We just didn't want to give it to you because that's not what we agreed to here. I mean,
it was in the contract.
What contract?
The podcast contract agreement.
I don't remember any podcast contract agreement. Is there something?
I mean, it's that long scrolled up piece of paper that you signed, Jack.
No, there's no such thing. No, I didn't sign anything. No, you texted me and said, "Hey, can I crash on your couch?" And you gave me a date, and then you showed up the day before, and now you're saying there's a contract?
Like I said, that's what makes it a surprise. You did sign a contract. It's my lawyer. I can show it to you. I would show it to you, but it's in my lawyer's safe.
You have a contract that's in your lawyer's safe? What's your lawyer? What?
I don't. Where do you keep your contracts? Just out in the open for anyone to steal and.
No.
You don't keep contracts with like your friends and stuff?
I don't even have a safe.
How do you guarantee that they don't wrong you?
Well, I trust my friends. I mean, I trust most of my friends.
I feel like we're getting off track. Just forget the contract agreement, the podcast contract agreement. It's in my lawyer's safe. He'll remain nameless for legal reasons.
Sure.
But I would tell you if we were off air.
Okay, sure. I'll call you after that.
After I drink my espresso and make my non-continental breakfast, that's when I get in the shower. And, if I'm getting in to clean myself, it takes 45 minutes about.
Okay, so does it take 45 minutes to clean yourself?
Well, if you'll let me finish, when I'm getting in to cry, it takes about an hour 15.
Yeah. But most days it was at least an hour 15. So.
Well, I'm a creature of habit. I'm a creature of habit.
All right.
And so most days I do cry in the shower.
Okay. I didn't really want to bring that part up with you. I just figured it was personal, but it was getting kind of annoying when you got past the hour 20 mark on some of those.
Well, sometimes I cry and clean.
Crying a little early too. It was loud. Like we could hear that.
Well, it's kind of like once I close the bathroom door, that space is mine, and I think that's fair. And
Okay.
you know,
Whatever.
it's I think if there's only one bathroom in a house, then the guest gets to claim it for however long he, she, or they want.
Is that also in the agreement? Is that in your agreement too?
Yeah,
Really? All right. See,
that was in the contract.
some days it was fine because you did some early afternoon showers sometimes, but other days I just need to go to the bathroom and then I had to wait for an hour. So
You and me both, buddy. So once I get out of the shower, you know this, my listeners probably don't. I like to get outside to dry, especially in California when the sun is warm but not blazing. I like to get outside to dry, still with my towel on. Maybe smoke a cigarette to warm the blood back
oh my
up.
gosh.
Because you know when you get out of the shower, it's cold, so you got to warm yourself back up with the cigarette.
Yeah. Can we just talk about that for a second? Because
What part?
the part where I told my landlord that I didn't smoke, and then you smoked at least a cigarette a day, usually multiple, with no clothes on. That I just didn't, that part. That kind of.
I don't
That's
hear the
kind of like,
problem
well,
here
that was a little
because
too
you
much,
weren't
right?
smoking any of these cigarettes.
Yeah, I
You
don't
know, like it's not
smoke.
like you lied to your landlord.
Well, I didn't lie, but I didn't tell them I have a guest coming. And she might have been able to smell it if she walked by. I mean, we got kind of lucky with that. Don't you think?
That sounds like less of like a building concern and more of like a health concern to me. Like she wants to make sure you don't smoke
Well, she wants to
because
make sure, it's just part of the thing. I don't want people smoking.
I mean, maybe she's a
Right.
former smoker and she's not concerned with smoke in the building. She's just saying like I just want to make sure you don't smoke because it's a nasty habit. Do you think that might be the case?
No.
After I smoke my cigarettes, I come back inside, I get dressed, I only have one pair of clothes when I go to stay with people. I get dressed back up in my clothes. Um, some days I remember to bring them into the bathroom, and that's the other reason why it takes so long because I'm steaming my clothes to clean them. And then the days that I forget to do that, I put them on anyway, and I spray them. I used to have to go for Febreze, and now all I have is like mouth spray, like the thing that you would use before you go to talk to a girl in a TV show.
Yeah, sure. I know.
So I spray it with that. It's cherry flavored, and then I wear the clothes.
Is that what that smell was from?
That's what the smell was.
Oh.
And that's the other reason I like to smoke naked because I don't want the
why-
smoke on my clothes.
There's so many smells going around that all the time you were here, and I was just so confused.
I mean, I wanted you guys to remember it like France. Like, when you go to France, there's smells everywhere. You smell the Riviera and the cheese and the wine, and you smell that
smell
cafe
that all
that
the time?
Hemingway used to go to.
Okay.
That's what I wanted it to be like.
So.
Wow. That's clear to me, Jack.
All right.
Don't feel bad because you've never been to France. Few of us have.
Okay.
No follow-up question about. Basically I wanted there to be smells so that the next time you smell that, like the next time you smell cherry mouth spray or cigarettes or my Gouda, if you smell Gouda the next time, you'll think of me and you'll have fond memories to talk about. Because here's the thing, Jack, you're engaged and you're gonna marry this Lauren, who's great, by the way. We get along great. But at some point you're gonna run out of things to talk about. But then you'll be thanking me then. That's where I come in because you'll smell a smell and you'll think of me and you'll have something to talk about.
And I'll think of those 3 weeks that you stayed on my couch.
I hope we remember it for forever.
I probably will. I will for a long time.
after I get dressed and eat my cheese, that's when I try to write my album. I'm trying to write a rock and roll album. Um,
Yeah, I know.
and thank you for letting me borrow your guitars and drums. That was so nice of you to let me use those for the 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I work on the album off and on from about 2 in the afternoon Pacific Standard Time to about 12 or 1 at night. Just I'm kind of in that. I may not be doing that the whole time, but I'm in that mode the whole time. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely saw that.
So, and, I might take a break to watch a couple of movies or, to go on a walk. And we went on walks.
Yeah.
But the whole
My
time,
favorite
that
walks were the
whole
ones where, like, you went on a walk, and then Lauren and I didn't go on a walk. Those were the best, because then we kind of had some time, you know? Would you say those were fun for you?
I liked it when we all went on a walk.
Yeah, that one time, that was good, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So so I'm writing my rock and roll album.
Is there a reason why you worked, like, so late? Like, sometimes I thought you'd be done, and, like, it'd be nighttime, and we'd watch a movie or something, and then we'd go to sleep, and then an hour would pass, and then you'd start banging on the drums. Like, what was that about, you know?
I didn't hear any complaints from Lauren about that.
Well, she just didn't tell you.
Oh, she did complain.
Yeah. I also had a neighbor one time.
Well, they're jerks. You know that, right?
Well, I mean, I hardly know him, but I don't think so.
You know how like 3 times a week when you go to look for your newspaper and it's not there, it's not because the newspaper man forgot like you think. It's your neighbors are stealing your newspaper. I just want to tell you that.
Okay. Maybe. I don't know.
Let's not talk about the rock and roll album anymore. I just think we should give me time to finish it and let it speak for itself, if that's okay.
Some of those didn't even, I mean, okay, but like some of those didn't even sound like songs, you know? Don't you agree? Like, I was not sure that you were writing an album or just kind of like a stream of consciousness on the drums.
That is kind of what it is. It's like a musical poem.
Sure. Okay.
So it was interesting for me to come live with, I think about like when I get divorced one day, and I do think I'll get divorced. Like the part about that I'm most excited about is like when I come to stay with my friends, and it's like just like I can do, like with my sheets all balled up in my arms, and like just like a backpack or like just like a duffel bag, and just like one toothbrush, and that's like all the toiletries I have. And I have to use all your spares. When I have that fantasy, I don't always picture there being like a woman living in the house also.
Yeah.
So
that might just be something you have to deal with certain friends, such as me being engaged. I live with my fiance. You're not always gonna have.
And do you think you'll go through with it?
I do. And I think you might have less and less friends who are single,
You probably haven't met most of my friends. How was Lauren's experience with having me there? And this is your first home together, right?
Yeah.
And a weekend I come in. Did that make it easier for her?
Can I just tell you what it was like? You're not gonna get offended, right?
I don't know why I would get offended if.
Okay, well, she was pretty annoyed on day 2 because she never really was on board with the idea, and you told us about it like 2 days before you showed up. Yeah, and then also you were here for breakfast. Yeah, that was kind of annoying. And
Well, I was the guest, right?
You were a guest. You were um, yes, you were a guest of ours, and we allowed you to stay here for 3 weeks. So I'd say that was pretty nice of us. So I don't see where we owe you breakfast comes in,
But these are just small things. Like, she had like the time of her life overall, right?
Well, the whole you kept us up till like 1 or 2 a.m. most nights, so like.
But you got to listen to great music.
Yes, yeah. Can't wait for the album. By the way. Yeah. So we had just a great time. Yeah, sure.
So I don't know why I'd be offended. If it sounds like Lauren had a great time. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I mean, you said that, right?
Well, okay, so, like, if you're ever gonna plan on coming again, just as a word of advice, I don't know how you keep your personal schedule, but maybe give us, like, at least, like, 2 or 3 weeks of notice before you come, you know?
I mean, the podcast is just... That's a fair request, if not for the podcast being so time sensitive.
Okay.
I mean, I'm doing this for the podcast, like, I'm not just crashing on people's couches because that's like my only option. I'm doing it because this is what the podcast is.
Okay, but didn't you come straight from the last podcast place, right?
Yeah.
And
I was crashing on someone's couches. I did their podcast episode. Then I came to your place. Now I'm at someone else's place on there. Well, they don't own a couch. They own a recliner chair. And it's very old, but that's where I sleep. And now in 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to do their podcast. And
so
then I'll move on to the next podcast guest house.
Do you ever go home and then do your podcast from home while you talk to someone else?
I don't understand that question.
Yeah, so, like, do you have a place?
I mean, my...
episode, like, what is it, 33 right now? And you've not... I feel like every episode, you came straight from the last place.
I am 33, which is, need I remind you, the age of... that is the age of Christ. And when Christ was 33, he was moving about place to place, crashing on couches. I mean, how do you think he got his disciples? How do you think he got his disciples? He got his disciples because he would...
evangelical Christian now or something? Are you...
no, I never said that. I just
kind of sitting around most days and crying in the shower.
I never said I was evangelical. I voted for Jill Stein in 2016.
All right.
When I was 28 or 29 years old, all I'm saying is that when I'm the age of Jesus, and when Jesus was that age, he was crashing on everyone's houses. St. James the Elder, St. James the Lesser, St. Luke, whom he had not yet met.
I'm not seeing the real comparison here.
I'm saying, what does my age have to do with it if the most famous 33-year-old of all time also is crashing on couches? And of course, then they just had big stacks of hay for couches.
Yeah, they did.
And they had like a sheet to cover it with back in those days.
Well, anyway.
And not much has changed, Jack.
No, I think a lot has changed because most people have a pretty stable living situation, and crashing on one couch after another is, I don't know, like, that doesn't seem very,
Oh, well, need I remind you, it's for a podcast.
Just for the podcast.
This is the podcast. I went to NPR and I say, I have a podcast that's going to blow the socks off of this. People are going to forget about This American Life after I release this podcast. I say Ira Glass will be a thing of the past because this is your new podcast. Hear me out, NPR.
When did you tell them
So
that?
I am a person. When I was pitching the podcast, I told them this. I said, I am going to crash on people's couches for several weeks and just live with them and then have a podcast with that person I was living with. And it's going to be the biggest thing since the Joe Rogan Experience. And they passed, but
Yeah,
I went on and did it anyway, and I don't know how that seems to imply that I don't have things together. When I've started my own podcast, I've monetized it. Do you want to hear an ad read? Do you want to hear an ad read?
yeah. Let's hear it, Reed. Let's go to break.
Okay. The Couch Surfers podcast is brought to you by Blue Moon
You have one,
Beer.
right? Okay.
Do what?
He's saying you have one, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're our sponsor. They send me beer.
Okay.
So yes, I have one in front of me, but that's not why I'm doing the ad read on Blue Moon. Blue Moon beer is brewed with Valencia orange peel, and it is taste responsibly. It's
Is this a
5.4%.
Are you getting paid for this for real?
It's I think it's clear I'm getting paid for this. Blue
I
Moon
don't- I'm
Belgian
pretty
white
sure you
Belgian
bought
style
that
wheat
Blue Moon
ale.
Last week on your own.
It expires June 15th, 2020. And the government warning for any of you who are thinking about drinking beer while pregnant, it says, according to the Surgeon General, whom I
Okay, so
believe is
there's no way
is
this
Dr.
is
Ben
real.
Carson.
You can just
Women should not
Yeah,
drink
come on.
alcoholic beverages during pregnancy, Jack, please, because of the risk of birth defects. Number 2, consumption of alcoholic beverages impairs your ability to drive a car or operate machinery and may cause health problems. I mean, Blue Moon sends me a sheet of paper. They say, this is the ad to read. And I read it, and they pay me, like, what, thousands of dollars?
I don't think that's true. I just don't think that's true.
We have to do this before we got to transition back to the podcast from the ad break. We can't just keep going on. See, this is the thing, and this is what I told you when I was staying at your place.
What?
I know what I'm doing with podcasts.
Okay.
We try to monetize it. I do an ad break.
Sorry to tear apart.
What do you?
Okay. I just didn't realize you had a sponsor.
I have a sponsor, and
Okay.
I think this proves that I'm not just crashing on couches.
Well,
Because I have no bed.
You had a real sponsor, and that wasn't just a fake sponsor that you made up because you're trying to convince me that.
I think if I invented Blue Moon beer, I wouldn't be crashing on couches, Jack. So I think this is a real sponsor.
Sure.
Back
to the podcast. What were we talking about? When you stopped smoking the cigarettes, I was pretty jazzed about that because already that was bad. But then you smoked even more cigars. So I know.
Maybe it's time to do another ad break.
We just did an ad break. I think that a cigar is
I
gonna hurt.
I think I should do another ad. I think you still don't believe I have ad sponsors, so I'm gonna do another
Go to
ad
your
break.
next sponsor. Go to your next.
I'm doing it. Okay.
Go on.
The Couch Surfers podcast is brought to you by Frosted Chocolate Chip Pop-Tarts. It's brought to you by the Frosted Chocolate Chip Pop-Tarts that come in, like, the individually wrapped bags. Like, the one that has a picture on it. It's not just aluminum foil. Like, the kind that you would get at a gas station. Pop-Tarts contains wheat, milk, soy, and eggs.
Okay.
So if those are all the things
That's
that
not part
you
of the
love,
ad. That,
have you
I
ever
don't
listened to
think you're...
the You Made It Weird with Pete Holmes? This is how he does ad reads.
Okay, I'll just let you finish.
Frosted chocolate chip Pop Tarts are a good source of 3B vitamins. Fully baked, ready to eat, or heat, or freeze, or stack. You can stack Pop Tarts now. To open a pack of Pop Tarts, just lift the seal and tear. And it's very good.
Cool.
I like this kind because you can it's like the frosting isn't overbearing. It's like a toaster strudel, but the frosting is hard. Was that good enough for you, Jack? To prove that I have ad sponsors?
Well, I mean, said it. Okay, I don't think that was real, but whatever. Let's just go on. It's fine.
It sounds to me like we had a wonderful time. Here's what I really think is going on here, Jack. Can I call you Jack?
Yeah, that's my name.
We were in the honeymoon phase for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks, our lives, the three of us, you, me, and your fiance Lauren, who were all roommates, our lives were perfect bliss for 3 weeks. Now that I've left, you guys are settling into a new state, a new home. It's hard. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, so you guys can't really go outside and do stuff.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if you're realizing that you had a good thing and didn't notice until it was gone.
Well,
Is that the case? Maybe?
No, I would say the opposite. I just, yeah, I mean, you were great, you're a good guest. There was a honeymoon phase, you could say, for like a day and a half. It was kind of pleasantries, and we were nice to each other, and it was nice. But then the rock started, and the hours, the cigarettes got really old really fast, so. You were a fun guest to have. It was an experience. It was a new experience.
Yes, I was fun.
It's definitely something I'll tell my friends about.
Yeah, I will too.
So you could spin it in a positive way, like I probably won't have guests stay on my couch anymore for more than a week,
Because it would be kind of like defiling that beautiful memory. Kind of like they won't let another person paint the Mona Lisa.
Well, yeah, you wouldn't paint over the Mona Lisa.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing with, why would you paint over the Mona Lisa and have someone else stay with you for 3 weeks, If something's already perfect, you don't want to...
I'd have people stay over. But I think, next time I tell them, please don't smoke. Please leave after a week and a half. It all depends.
Yeah, because it's like, those are things that our friend Bo does, Like, that's not for you to do here.
Yeah, let's just go with that. Yeah.
I guess we should do another ad break, because we might as well let the money train keep rolling in.
Yes, the money train.
So I can buy that second car,
Do you have a car?
Okay. Let's see. This podcast is brought to you by M&M's and Reese's Big Cup. They're great on their own, but when you combine them, it makes for kind of like a dish that you can serve in a bowl if you want to. Like you put like the Reese's cups in there. And what I do is I put a paper towel, you know this, Jack. I put a paper towel down in the microwave, and I put the Reese's cups in there for 5 to 10 seconds. Now what that does is it makes them kind of melty,
Yeah.
and then I put those in a bowl, and I pour M&Ms over it, and then I do whipped
It's
cream
way too
on
many
top.
dishes. It's so much dishes for what it is.
It uses like 5 or 6
Even
dishes
like
overall. Because then when it's in the bowl, you move it to another thing, and that's when it really takes off. You fill another bowl up with chocolate syrup or Nutella, if that's something you have. And you,
Yeah,
I call it my adult candy, because it's like candy if an adult,
well, I don't
if it
think
was for adults.
we can just cut out this later. I don't think this is a real ad. I don't think because this is all the
Jack,
same food that you've been eating while you were here.
Jack.
You have lying around.
What do you think? I'm just looking around the recliner that I'm sitting on right now, trying to find garbage to do ad reads. I mean, that would be pathetic if that's what I was doing. These are real companies that pay me.
Do I need to call Thomas and tell him about all the stuff that you did at my place? Because I know you're there now. I mean, I kind of feel like
No, sir.
Okay.
No, you don't need to do
Nicer
that.
to Thomas, right?
Yeah, I'll be good to Thomas.
Okay. Don't smoke too many cigars. Yeah, there's just a limit, you know. There's like a limit to how much generosity you can extend to certain people.
And I extended my generosity, and maybe I extended too much, and that's why I acted out a little bit. But you got to remember all the generosity I gave you first.
What was that?
Isn't that what you're saying?
What was the generosity you gave me?
Unconditional friendship.
But you stayed at my house. You asked
I gave you unconditional friendship under a legally binding contract.
Okay, well, first off, the contract doesn't exist.
Can I just finish the ad read really quick?
Okay, whatever.
M&M's and Reese's. Get them in your mouth today.
Okay, I can't do this anymore.
Well, of course you
I'll tell you
can't.
what.
We're out of time. That's just a silly way to say that. Jack, it's been an incredible time with you, and loving you, and knowing you. You have my blessing to marry Lauren.
Thank you so much
And
for that.
I wish you guys only the best. I know your house is open to me anytime I need it, and for that I am eternally grateful. But I'm a little busy, you know. I think I'm doing okay for myself, so I probably won't be accepting that offer too much. But I just want to say that you're my best friend, and I loved your house most of all because you guys let me smoke, and you guys let me play my drums and write my rock and roll album, and you guys gave me full use of the microwave for whatever I wanted to make, and
I'd say that was pretty nice of us.
And you know, if I wanted to have just ice cream for dinner, like just ice cream, you guys let me. And when I left your house with my backpack and my toothbrush in my pocket right next to my keys, with like the bristles down, my bristles down in the pocket, like where the keys, so it's like touching the keys, and my sheets, my king size comforter, my blanket folded up, balled up in my arms. When I left, I thought, here goes the best guest they'll ever have. What a way to start out your life together.
Yes.
And for that, I am grateful.
Thank you so much for that.
Jack, the way we finish every podcast is the host, the person. It's funny because I'm the host of the podcast, but you hosted me. You know, it's kind of like a eye for an eye thing. We have the person who hosted me in their home just say the best 3 things about my visit, and that's how we close the podcast. So you can do that right now. If you need some time to think, I can do another ad read.
Okay, best 3 things. My favorite part was the last day when you left. The other two best things. Best things. Let's see. Can't think of much because there weren't a lot of redeeming qualities, especially the last week.
It was just a lot of good stuff. It's hard to
Cigarettes,
narrow it
with
down.
cigarettes, that was good.
Yeah, because that's when I started smoking cigars. I liked that
The
too.
day you didn't smoke was good.
Yeah.
And the third thing was that you brought your own sheets and comforter, I guess. So that was good.
I love that part too. You and me, Jack, we just get each other. We're always on the same page. I had the time of my life at your house, and I'll never forget it for as long as I live on this earth of ours. Thanks again, Jack.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
And I can't wait to stay in touch with you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Oh, okay. Yeah. See you, man. See you, dude. That was the Couch Surfers podcast. Everyone here at the Premise Podcast wants to thank you. I'll do that on everyone's behalf. Stephen Marcus, our co-host. Muskosh, our unpaid intern. He's a good guy. You know everything about him. You know what he looks like. You know what he's all about. And we love him here. He is the one who keeps the coffee pouring down our throats. Thanks also to Jack C, for being in this episode. You may recognize his voice. He's been in 2 episodes before. He was in the sketch episode, the classic radio sketch comedy episode, and he was a contestant on the Podcatcher. So this is Jack's 3rd time being on the show. He holds the record with Katie Corbin, and I guess I shouldn't say her last name. He holds the record with Katie and for 3 times being on the show. And that's some trivia for you that you keep in your back pocket. As always, thank you to the band Edelweiss and their band members, Becca and JT Mercer, for the theme song. Becca and JT Mercer are a musical duo named Edelweiss, kind of like Donnie and Marie, or Sonny and Cher, or Simon and Garfunkel, I suppose. Hopefully JT and Becca's relationship ends up a bit better than Simon and Garfunkel's relationship ended up. So for everyone here at the Premise Podcast, also the Premise Podcast has a Twitter now. I don't know the handle off the top of my head. I'm not sure if anyone does, but it's like at Podcast Premise or something like. I don't know. But look it up. Find my Twitter, which is Analyze Thus, and you can work your way backwards from there. Do some research. It's a good skill to train. Follow us, tweet at us, send us your premise ideas. Will we do them? I doubt it. But we'd love to see your ideas. And send us to, maybe you want to be on the show. Just let us know. You know, what's the worst that can happen? A rejection? It's likely. But what's the worst, really? Is that so bad? And if you're a, celebrity, A-list or otherwise, and you're listening to the show, please, for the love of God, reach out to us and ask to be on our podcast. We have not had a real guest yet. We were talking on the 2nd episode, when are we going to have a real guest? And here we are months later, and still just using friends we know, which is great. They're great, but they only have so much to give emotionally. For everyone at the Premise Podcast, my name is Bo Segrist. Thanks again for listening.